About 2 months later, after my 10-year party, I flew to South Dakota, gave a talk, flew home on Sunday, locked the door, turned on the answering machine, and tried to commit suicide with 10 years and 3 months of sobriety.
Well, hello, friends of Bill W. and other friends. You have landed on Sober Speak. My name is John M. I am an alcoholic, and we are glad you are all here, especially newcomers. Newcomers, that is, both to recovery as a whole and newcomers to this podcast. Sober Speak is a podcast about recovery centered around the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. My job here on Sober Speak is simple. My job is to provide a platform to the amazing stories of recovery all around us. Consider Sober Speak, if you will, your meeting between meetings. Please remember, we do not speak for AA or any 12-step community. We represent only ourselves. We are here to share our experience, strength, and hope with those who wish to come along for the ride. Take what you want and leave the rest at the curb for the trash man to pick up. Greetings. Excuse me. Greetings from Studio AA, deep in the heart of Texas. That was the voice of Tracie J. On this here episode number 349 that you heard at the beginning of this episode, and you are going to hear so much more from Tracie in just a moment. But first things first, this here episode is brought to you by Andrea, Myra, Jill, Audrey, Mary Lynn, Timothy, and Laura. What, you may ask, did Andrea, Myra, Jill, Audrey, Mary Lynn, Timothy, and Laura do? Well, they visited our humble little website, www.soberspeak.com. They scrolled to the bottom of the page and they clicked on that little yellow donate tab and made a contribution. So thank you so much, Andrea, Myra, Jill, Audrey, Mary Lynn, Timothy, and Laura. This here episode is coming right out to Ewans, and I want to kind of make a special note on the contributions this week. Both Andrea and Myra sent in a contribution on behalf of, or I should maybe say in memory of, Aaron, excuse me, Aaron Weirville. May he rest in peace, Aaron. I know your friends and family members are thinking about you. It is just a stark reminder to all of us regarding the seriousness of this illness we call alcoholism and addiction. And Andrea and Myra, thank you for writing in on behalf of Mr. Aaron Weirville. And once again, for the family and friends listening out there, we are with you. All right, so I was thinking this week, the old saying, excuse me, I obviously I should clear my throat before I actually start recording sometimes, but I never know exactly what's going to happen here with my throat. But nonetheless, we're in the middle of this and I don't feel like re-recording, so I'm going to go on with it. So I was thinking this week, you ever heard the 3 words you never want to hear an alcoholic say is, I've been thinking. But I was doing it anyway. So I was thinking this week, the word character came up in my head. And I was thinking about character and what it means and what it is. And do I have it? Do I need to improve on it? How do I recognize it? What exactly is character? And so I decided to find character in both the Big Book and the 12 and 12. I just did a little word search. And as you know, it's in the steps, right? It says, remove these defects of character. But then I found this line in the 12 and 12, which I've always loved. When I say I've always loved this paragraph, actually. And if you want to read along at home, if you're not driving or something, it's the bottom of page 71, going into page 72, step 7 of the 12 and 12. It says, true, most of us thought good character was desirable, but obviously good character was something one needed to get on with the business of being self-satisfied. With the proper display of honesty and morality, we'd stand a better chance of getting what we really wanted. But, whenever we had to choose between character and comfort, the character building was lost in the dust of our chase after what we thought was happiness. Seldom did we look at character building as something that was desirable in itself, something we would like to strive for, or whether our instinctual needs were met or not. We never thought of making honesty, tolerance, and true love of man and God the daily basis of our living. So I asked myself, do I make honesty, tolerance, and true love of man and God the daily basis of my living? I think sometimes yes, sometimes no. I think we all come to forks in the road on a consistent basis. At least I do. I come to forks in a road on a consistent basis where I have to think to myself, okay, is that true and honest and tolerant? And do I show true love of man by making that choice? And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But if I'm going to have character or want to be recognized for the character in my life, sometimes it's worth it for me to stop and look at those choices that I make on a day-to-day basis. All right, now on to Tracie J. By the way, it is a Tracie with an I-E, Tracie J. And this is part 1 of my interview with Tracie. And I know you're absolutely going to love this one. It's called Preparing to Die. And Tracie is from Irving, Texas. She discusses growing up in a violent alcoholic home and what she calls white trash sort of home, moving out on her own at 16 years old, her experience with the Pacific Group in California. That's a Pacific AA group, for those of you not familiar with that. And then she discusses the time she made the decision to take her own life and was preparing to die. She paraphrases and discusses the quote in the book that says, he wants to enjoy a certain reputation, but knows in his heart he doesn't deserve it. Oh, how I can relate to that. Anyway, we talk about much, much more. Keep in mind, we're going to leave you with a cliffhanger this week. By the way, I got that term from my friend KCW. I had heard the term cliffhanger before, and it's not the first time I've ever heard it used, but the first time he ever talked about it in relation to this podcast, Sober Speak. That was the first time I had thought about it because I had 2 parts to a particular interview, and he said, we got a cliffhanger here. But anyway, and we're going to be Tracie with an I back, Tracie with an IE back next week for part 2 of her story. And enjoy Tracie, and we will have plenty listener feedback at the end of this episode. Okay, everybody. So today we are sitting here with Tracie J, literally sitting here this time. As a lot of you know, I do a lot of these interviews remotely, but fortunately Tracie lives in the area. She's sitting across from me right now, and I'm so glad she is here. So Tracie, why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, give your sobriety date if you wish, and tell people where you live in this great land of ours. Please.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. This is so exciting. First time I'm a podcast rookie. So I'm Tracie J, and I live in Irving, Texas, which is Dallas. And my sobriety date is January 12th of 1999.
January 12th and 99. January 12th, interestingly enough, is my the son who you just met here.
Yes, I did.
It's his birthday.
It's a good day. It's a good day.
It is a good day. Okay, so January 12th, 1999. And I just wanted to let folks know, and just in case he does listen as well, I was introduced to you through Jason J.
Oh, dear.
Up in the Portland area.
Oh, yeah. We all know Jason J, don't we?
he was a great guest. Absolutely loved having him on.
Yeah,
and
he's
so
a good
I'm assuming
guy.
you guys have met each other out on the circuit somehow, some way?
Well, actually, my ex-husband was his sponsor, so that's how I met him. So Jason talks about my ex-husband John. It's his what's his name, and Jason talks about him. So I co-sponsored Jason, but he's not sponsorable, so you can't do anything with him. He's a hot mess, so nothing you can do with him.
Yeah, he's a good guy. And I guess he still lives up there in the Northwest, right? Portland area?
He does. He does. He bought he calls it what does he call it? A ranch, but really it's a pond and some grapes. He calls it a ranch or something, or berry farm or something. I don't know what he calls it, but it's a pond and some berries.
Super. All right, so you grew up, if I'm not mistaken, in West Texas. Is that right?
I did. Lubbock, Texas.
Lubbock.
Yes, home of the Raiders. Yes.
Are you a Red Raider fan?
Of course.
Okay,
Of course.
gotcha.
However, the Cowboys, I live and breathe Dallas Cowboys. How about them boys? That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I understand that. We had a disappointing year
Oh.
this year again for like the 30th years in a row.
I
but
know. Hey, next year's our year.
Hey, yeah, next year we're going to do it.
I think that's our mantra with Dallas Cowboys. Next year's our year.
That's right. And for people who are listening that are in other countries and stuff like that, describe to them kind of sort of what West Texas is like, what it's all about.
It is flat. It's brown, a lot of cotton, but it's good folks. It's just good down home folk. We love our history. We love family, and we're very big. It's a very big Baptist. It's called the Bible Belt.
Yeah.
Very Baptist. We love God. And we love our Saturday night honky tonks. That's kind of the thing.
And for somebody who may not know what a honky tonk is, that is
well, it's heaven. That's really what a honky tonk is. It's heaven. If you've been in one, you know. It's a bar. Really, it's just a bar, but it's you've got the lights, you've got the big dance floor, you got the country music playing, and you got a line of cowboys with those big black felt hats along the bar, sitting on the bar, taking shots of whiskey, just waiting for us girls to come and get them and dance them into heaven. So that's a honky tonk. If you haven't been to one, you got to go.
Yeah, you're missing out.
Yeah, you are.
I think that is a very apt description there.
All right.
Okay, so you grew up in West Texas. So where do you want to start in your story here? I mean, obviously you're in AA now. You have a sobriety date. And I'm assuming you had a lot of activity over the first 20 years of your life while you're growing up. So talk to me.
Well, I did not have the best growing uppins. I come from a extremely violent alcoholic home. And I had a little brother, and he and I, we would hide in the corners, every night when my dad came home. And the sounds of alcoholism, if you have that in your home, those sounds, and it's flesh on flesh and furniture on walls and crying and screaming and yelling and silence. And, the sounds of alcoholism are extremely painful. And that's how I grew up, in the middle of alcoholism. always feeling not a part of, always feeling different and ashamed and shy and guilty and angry. The only solace that I had was my mother and my granddad. That was the only place that I went that was safe and clean. Other than that, it was a tough time. It was a tough upbringing.
So, I'm always wondering where to go with some of these, is like with the questions I have, because, some of this is kind of difficult stuff and I don't want to take you to where you don't want to go. But in terms of the violence and such, was it mainly your dad who was the perpetrator?
Yes, my dad. It was my dad, and it was mainly against my mom. He was a very, very violent alcoholic, and he would come in at 2:00 in the morning, and you just didn't know. You didn't know how the night was going to end.
I'm assuming he had been drinking when he
Oh,
came
absolutely.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, absolutely.
And were you and your mom, how many years did it last? Did she get?
She left him when I was in the 6th grade, I think. She finally left him. No education, no money. She had found Al-Anon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she started going to Al-Anon in 1969. She just celebrated 55 years of active service and being in Al-Anon.
Oh, God
55 years. Yeah. So she found Al-Anon, and she was in Al-Anon a couple of years before we left, but she finally decided she just couldn't do that lifestyle one more minute, and she left him, and we moved out into the country. And
that's okay. Somebody's calling.
Damn newcomers. So, yep, it is. It's a newcomer.
Sometimes
sorry.
I edit that stuff out. Sometimes I leave it in for real life. We shall see. I kind of like it. Newcomers, is that what you said? People
yeah,
calling
I said,
you?
damn newcomers. Don't they know I'm doing something important?
Okay, so y'all moved out to the country.
Yeah, so we moved out into the country, and it was a horrible place. My mom didn't have money, and I call it a one bedroom shack, because it was hideous, but it was all she could afford. And I never, it never dawned on me that she was trying to get us out of this mess, which is what I screamed and yelled at her about. Why are we living in this? So she moves us out of it, and it wasn't enough. That wasn't it either. That wasn't the right thing either. I always thought if we lived with white frilly curtains and a white picket fence, then everything would be okay. Then I would be all right. Then I wouldn't feel that guilt and that shame on the inside, if only. But that she didn't have the funds and the capability to do that. But she could get us out of that nightmare. Yeah. And the place we moved into it was horrible. It was one bedroom, and my brother and I slept on bunk beds in the laundry room. It was just, rat infested and roaches and floors falling in. It was hideous, but she got us out of that mess, out of the violence. And I didn't see that part until I got in here.
Well, so that was going to be my next question. Did you see that at the time that there was a relief from not being in the violence?
No, all I could see was what she hadn't done right. All I could see was look at us now, look where you put us now. And all I could think about was, just so much shame and embarrassment. First we were the house with the clothes thrown out on the front yard. And now we're at the house that, it actually was torn down when we moved out of it. I mean, they destroyed it. Now we're the white trash on this block, just such embarrassment, such shame, such humiliation, such anger. That's how I grew up.
Okay, so that was 6th grade.
Somewhere around there.
Take me then, kind of give me a thumbnail sketch of the next, 10, 15 years, some sort of milestones.
So out there is where there was a boy, and you'll hear that in my story a few times. There was a boy, and there was a particular boy. His name was Jay.
Now, is this out at the one
Yeah.
shack?
Yeah. We moved out to school, and his name was Jay. He had long blonde hair, big, thick black boots. He had a wallet in his back pocket, and the chain went from the wallet to the belt loop, So when he walked, he jingled with those big, thick black boots. He drove a green GTO with big, wide tires in the back. He was a bad boy, no doubt about it. And Jay asked me if I wanted to go hang out, and I just, you betcha. Of course I did.
Now, how old are you at this time?
I was probably 14-ish, I think, something like that.
Teenager.
And he picked me up that night in that green GTO, and there were 2 brown paper sacks in that car. One was his, and one was mine.
And how old was he?
Probably about 16, 17, maybe. And his brown paper sack had a 6-pack of Budweiser. And my brown paper sack had a bottle of Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill. I mean, what are you going to do? And that was the first time that alcohol had the effect produced on me. Because I'd been around alcohol my whole life. I grew up around it. But this time it was on me. And my life changed that night. Because I found the one thing that worked for me, and it gave me that sense of ease and comfort. And it gave me that we all know. And it took away the guilt and the shame and the humiliation. All of that was gone that night. I was in the moment that night. I was right here, right now. And everything was just okay. And from that day to the day I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous, I fought to get that moment right back that night. That sense of ease and comfort, that I'm okay, I'm right here, right now. And I fought for my right to drink from that day forward. So what started happening is our house came alive again at 2:00, but it was me and my mom this time when I came in drunk, and her and I went to war. And she eventually, that we screamed the mantra, "Let me do what I want to do." And she said, "Okay," and kicked me out. Right. And I was probably 16 years old and out on my own. And me and another girl got our own apartment, and I started my career with Pizza Hut and dropped out of high school and, drank and partied from that day to the day I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous the first time.
Wow. So you were 16, not in high school anymore, and doing what we do.
What we thought was the dream.
Right.
Now, back then, too, you got to remember the drinking age was 18, and I looked 18. I had, God gave me things to make me look older. And so I could get into the bars at 13, 14 years old. So I was a bar girl. I was in those honky tonks from day one. So we were in the bar every single night and doing what happens in a bar every single night. And then I had a little incident where I faked being raped, and there was a whole story around that. And I moved back home after that lie, and did get to graduate.
Okay, let me go back to what's his name. James? Jay.
Yeah.
What happened with Jay?
Oh, that was just, one of those.
Okay, that was just,
okay, so just nothing... one of those nights. Just one of them nights. Matter of fact, I do know he's long dead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, long dead. Yeah.
Did he die from, do you know if he died from drinking?
Oh, absolutely. Drug addiction. Absolutely. Back in high school. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then hold on, I know people are going to be saying, what did she just say? She faked being raped?
Yeah, all right. So
how much do you want to go into?
Oh, I'll tell the story. So we went to a bar, borrowed a car. It was Tom Collins night. So you get a Tom Collins are tall and clear, and a red cherry. I had a lot of Tom Collins, ate a lot of cherries, fell off of the stool drunk. They kicked me out of the bar. I went out to the car, passed out. 3:00 in the morning, I came to, and when I opened my eyes, my face was stuck to the seat of the car in dried red cherry puke. So I peeled my face off of there. Now, I was probably 16, something like that. That's really, really young when you think about it. And I was stone cold sober now, and I was terrified. And what I really wanted at that very moment, I wanted my mom. I wanted to go home. I wanted to be safe in that horrible house, but it was safe. And I wanted to go home. I wanted the frilly curtains and the white picket fence. But I couldn't tell you that because I'm a bad girl. I couldn't say that to anybody. So some guy gave me a ride back to our apartment because my purse was long gone. And when my roommate opened the door, I didn't want to say to her as I was standing there crying, I want my mommy. I can't say that because we're tough and bad girls, So I had to make something up as why I was hysterical. And I don't know why that came to my mind, but I said, she's like, my God, what's the matter? And I said, I was raped, and 2 men came out to the car and raped me where I was in the parking lot. And I have no idea where that came from, but she bought the story and said, oh my God, come in. Are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, but it was terrible. It was horrible. And that could justify why I was crying and I was so upset. I didn't have to tell the truth. So, she let me, I said, I'm going to my room now. And, she stayed in the living room hysterical, and I didn't know that. I thought we were all going to bed now. But a few minutes later, there was a knock on my bedroom door, and there were 2 policemen standing there, and they had called my mom, who I hadn't seen in months, and behind my mom were 10,000 more Al-Anons to help. And behind them was the forensic photographer, and behind them was the Rape Crisis Center representative who was assigned to my rape case. Yeah. What are you going to do? Oh, it was horrific. So what are you going to do? I'm not going to, I don't have the tools to tell the truth. So I went along with that story, and we did the whole hospital. We did the police station. We did the whole thing. But the result of that is I moved back home, and I did have to make a lot of amends around that mess. I'll tell you, my mom, like fast forward, my mom was a speaker all over the country in Al-Anon and by this time, and she asked me to come hear her speak one time. I was still drinking, and I went to go hear her speak, and she grabs a hold of the podium and she said, my name is Vanoy, and I'm a member of Al-Anon. And
Vanoy's your mom.
Vanoy is my mom. Yes, that's my mom. Okay, yes.
Yeah, probably should have asked.
No,
she's been on this podcast.
Yes, that's my mama. So by the way, I tell her that my story keeps her on the circuit. So she's behind that podium crying, and she said, I feel so much guilt. I'm so excited my daughter's here, but I feel so much guilt because I kicked her out of the house and she was raped. And I thought, oh my God, she's going all over the country telling that story, and it's not true. And I should have told her right then and relieve that guilt. But we don't do that. I didn't have the tools to do that. So I just went up and said, great talk, Mom, and went to the bar. So when I got sober, that was one of the first things I needed to clean up because there was a lot of stuff that happened around that. And I did make that amends to her. And, surprisingly, she wasn't all giddy and happy. She was pissed. She was mad. I want to just say this, that, our book says that our greatest asset when we walk in the door of Alcoholics Anonymous is not our job or our car, or none of that. Our greatest asset, says our book, is our past. That's it. And that our past can avert death and misery in God's hands. And that story, I have been able to talk to many, many women who have had similar stories or lied about something. I had a girl that put her father in prison over a fake rape. So I've been able to help a lot of women with that story. And I have tremendous respect for the women who have been through that situation. So I know that sometimes we go through things just so we can help a new person that walks in the door with a similar story. So that's how I moved back home after that mess.
So that was 16.
I was about 16 when that happened. Yeah. And I got sober the first time when I was 25. And so I my mom carried that for, I think I told her when I was 25 or 26. So she carried that for 6 or 7 years, the guilt of that.
Wow.
Yeah. That's what we do to our families. And we say, I didn't hurt anybody. I've only hurt me. Yeah.
So did you stay in that house until you were 25?
No, I moved back home. I got out of high school. I did get to graduate, and I decided to go off to college. And you put a girl like me in a college environment, and it was just a nightmare. It was a disaster. I found our people. I find the people who drink like me, and it was just college was a disaster. I got
Was it
kicked
out in
out.
Lubbock?
I went to West Texas State in Amarillo. It was Canyon, Texas, right south of Amarillo. Disaster. I got kicked out of college very soon. That did not work. And my best friend, we were in a fight in a bar and she got stabbed 3 times. And another event at a bar and we were in a brawl and a guy got beat in the head with a baseball bat. And another bar incident and I got arrested for contributing to the delinquency of a minor, a guy. Go figure. So college was quite the problem. So I dropped out of college and became a manager at Chelsea Street Pub in Dallas, Texas, actually.
Oh, Chelsea Street. That was on Greenville, is that right?
Yeah.
I've been there.
So I managed one of those. And here's the problem there. I had the key to the liquor cabinet. That wasn't a good idea. So that job didn't last long either. And in the meantime, my mom had married Jim Shaw from the Pacific Group in Los Angeles. So I thought he was the president or vice president or something of AA. He seemed to be this big deal. I don't know. But they met in Odessa, Texas, and she married him. And I thought she was going to go
They
off
met in Odessa?
at the convention.
Oh, I think so. He was traveling.
I think it was Midland, the Midwinter Conference.
Okay.
Yeah. So they met there. He was talking, she was talking. AA boy and girl.
Yeah.
So I was very happy for her. You go off and do your out online.
And for people not familiar with the Pacific Group, why don't you tell them about that? It's
Pacific Group. Yeah, Pacific Group is the largest single AA meeting in the world. It meets every Wednesday night. Used to be in Brentwood at the synagogue every Wednesday night, 7:20. It was Clancy's home group. Mm-hmm. It was 1,000 people every Wednesday night and ran like clockwork. Very exciting. It's like when I went there the first time, I thought it was like the Academy Awards of AA because all the speakers were there. Everyone I had grown up listening to were there. Yeah. So exciting group.
Yeah. It's a big group. I hear a lot of, they've done a lot of good for a lot of people. And, and a lot of people have replicated that kind of
format.
Format.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Started a lot of other meetings.
Absolutely. Lots of meetings. Matter of fact, my home group is the Chicago group in Dallas, and we have the principles of Pacific Group.
Yeah, okay, that's I thought so. And tell people about the Chicago group again for don't know it. It started from a group in Chicago. Do you know that story?
I do. So there's a guy in our group. His name is Baxter. He wanted to start a meeting, and he wanted the Pacific Group format. He called Clancy for the format. Clancy said, call Joe. He's in Chicago. Get it from him. Baxter called Joe and said, can I have the format for the group? And Joe said, you can have the format, but you're going to have to call it Chicago Group because I had to call mine the Los Angeles Group.
That's funny.
Yeah, so there's a Los Angeles group in Chicago, and then there's a Chicago group in Dallas.
And didn't somebody start one in San Antonio named the Dallas Group or something like that?
I don't know. I don't know.
That's what happened. I don't know if they're
I'll
still
have to
around.
find out.
Okay. So, all right, so I got you off track there. So your mom, Vinoy, got married to Jim, met him at a conference, and then you were in that area.
So it's 1984 now, and I'm working at Chelsea in Dallas, and I'm living I was a bartender by this time because I lost my manager job, took the keys away. And so I was a perfect bartender. That's a perfect job for alcoholics. And my mom would come home back to Lubbock every year it was called the Hub of the Plains Convention there then. So she would come in from LA back to Lubbock, and I would always go see her. at the convention because I love to hear the racy stories, and I'd go see my mom. So I had a drink and went to go see my mom. It was July 1984. There was a speaker there, the Friday night speaker. I went on Friday night, and the speaker was Father Leo from California. And he talked about the alcoholic loneliness that only another alcoholic knows. And I know that loneliness. I know it. And he talked about a hole in his gut that the wind whipped right through. And I had that hole. Yeah. I knew it. I started to hear the message of depth and weight for just a minute. And the miracle of miracles is I came back on Saturday night, which I'd never done. I came back on Saturday night, and the speaker that night was Johnny Harris.
Yeah.
We loved Johnny. He's still alive. He's still doing well. He's not traveling anymore, but he's still alive and well, and just still right in the smack dab middle of Alcoholics Anonymous as much as he can be. He still goes to his Monday night meeting at Bellflower Big Book in Bellflower, California. And he talked about how he always thought if he just had white frilly curtains and a white picket fence, that life would be perfect. And that was my story. I didn't know how he knew my secret. And that was the message of depth and weight that I heard. So when you sit in meetings and sometimes you think I have nothing to share, I don't have anything profound to say, that frilly white curtains and a white picket fence changed my entire life. So you don't know what God has in store. You don't know what God's message is for that person sitting there. That was mine. My message changed my life. And that night, there was a man from Dallas, Texas, named Albert Myers.
Albert
and Sally Myers. They're from Dallas.
Yeah, I've heard of him. But that's not the guy who did the traditions, though, right? There was another guy, Albert. I don't know. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm not sure. Albert was there. He was friends with my mom, and he kind of saw something going on with me and pulled me aside, and we talked that Saturday night for hours, and he told me the one thing that I needed to hear. He told me that inside every one of us is a little white piece of velvet that God does not let get tarnished. Hang on to your white piece of velvet. Because I felt like a piece of trash when I walked in here, the way I'd acted and the lifestyle I was living and, how I was behaving. I didn't look anybody in the eye. I certainly didn't look at another woman in the eye. And when he said that, it just gave me a little bit of hope that maybe I wasn't such a bad person and maybe I wasn't such a white piece of trash after all.
So is this in 1984?
1984. I got sober that weekend at the convention. I left that convention, went straight to the Hub of the Plains Sunday night, 8:00 meeting.
So I noticed that when you first gave your sobriety date, you said 1999.
I did.
So there's some things going on somehow, some here, where between 1984 and 1989. Take me through some milestones.
Well, so I got sober in 1984, loved being sober, loved being, I loved it. I felt safe. I felt clean. I found a group of people that were amazing. Well, you know what they say, no relationship's your first year, and I didn't do so well on that one. There was a boy, and he told me I had cute shoes, so I married him because, the guys I were hanging out with, we weren't talking about shoes. So I felt clean and pretty, and we got married, and, well, let me clarify. We got pregnant, we got married. We had baby, we got divorced, and I moved in with Mom and Jim. And
it was that like within a year? Within 2 years?
Within a year.
So
it was a year.
All happened quick. Huh?
Yeah, it was a year. Well, and of course, we were 6 months sober. They tell you not to get involved in a relationship for a reason. There's a reason they tell us that. Is I had nothing to bring to a table to a marriage. The 12 and 12 talks about that we have to be compatible emotionally, spiritually, and then physically. And we get those backwards all the time. At least I do. We do the physical, and then we try to do the emotional, and we try to do the spiritual, and it's backwards. It's not going to work. And so we didn't work. So we broke up, and my daughter and I moved in with Mom and Jim, and we moved to Los Angeles, and I got to be in the Pacific group. At 5 years sober, I moved out there in 1989. I was smack dab in that group. Sharon Barker was my sponsor. She's Crane now.
Yeah.
And she does break her own anonymity, so I didn't break her anonymity. And back then we were called Barker Babies. And I went to the yard every Saturday morning. And the yard is, we go to Clancy's backyard on Saturday mornings. The girl played volleyball. The boys played baseball. And then we had hot dogs, and then we went home. And I did that every Saturday. I got 10 years of sobriety in the Pacific group. I was active as you can be, sponsoring girls, going around the country doing this, speaking, working on convention committees. I lived in Playa del Rey, member of the Pacific group. By this time, I was a law firm administrator. I worked on the 26th floor of a downtown law firm with a secretary outside my door. And if you looked at me, man, I looked like a good AA. I looked like I had it together, and that I was a star member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I had a 10-year party. My mom and Jim gave me a beautiful party at their house. About 2 months later, after my 10-year party, I flew to South Dakota, gave a talk, flew home on Sunday, locked the door, turned on the answering machine, and tried to commit suicide with 10 years and 3 months of sobriety.
Wow. Okay. So first of all, how did you try to commit suicide?
Pills. I took pills.
So did you have like a stock of pills?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, you don't wake up one day with 10 years of sobriety and say, I think I'm going to kill myself, or I think I'm going to drink today. That's not how it works. At least in my story. It was a slow stepping out of Alcoholics Anonymous. You either walk towards sobriety or you walk away. Every decision towards AA or away from AA. And I slowly started stepping out. A little thing here, a little lie here, a little secret here, a little resentment here, a little inappropriate here, a little not taking direction here. It's a slow out the door, not praying anymore, resentment at God, little secret here. You go out the door slowly. And I knew where drinking got me. I knew where that would go. And I didn't think I had it in me. And so for me, the way out, that spring inside gets tighter and tighter and tighter, restless, irritable, discontent, tighter and tighter. And you got to have a sense of ease and comfort. And I wasn't getting it from AA anymore. My choice. That's on me. I was no longer sponsorable. I was no longer taking direction. It was all on me. And eventually that spring's going to bust. And I decided the way to go was just check out. Commit suicide. So I started going to doctors and getting pills a little bit at a time. Yeah, it was about a 3-month process.
Gotcha. So it was a 3-month process of really planning.
Knowing it, hiding it, secrets, scared, changing my mind. Nope, this is what I'm doing. And preparing. I sent my daughter to live with her dad. And I just started preparing to die.
Wow.
Commit suicide. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you take these pills.
I did. I did.
Attempt to suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
So, and let me just say, an alcoholic can die of alcoholism without ever taking a drink. Alcoholism is in the mind. It centers in the mind. And an alcoholic like me, you can't just sit in meetings and think that you've arrived. I thought that sober was the goal. I thought sober was it. When you're sober, that's it. That's the goal. That's not the goal. That's the starting point. We start at sober. And our book says that you have to enlarge and grow your spiritual life. That's the path. That's the goal. And I wasn't doing that goal. I had stopped that goal a long time ago. I was sober. And that is, you can't just sit in meetings and be sober. Not for me. So sometime during the night, the next day, I think somebody called, and I guess I answered the phone, and they knew something was wrong. And, there was that knock on the door again, and there's my mom again. And behind her are the two, the guys with the white suits and the stretcher, and the police, and they came in and they took me to Daniel Freeman Memorial Hospital and put me on a 7-day psych hold. So I went to Daniel Freeman and on a psych hold, and I got to tell you, I was pissed. I was so mad because, like, now what? That didn't work. So now what?
Let me back up here.
Sure, of course.
So did anyone else see? Obviously, you knew something was going on in your head. Mm-hmm. Were there signs for anybody else, or was everybody just absolutely flabbergasted?
Flabbergasted. Because I looked the part. I just spoke in South Dakota. I was the speaker. I looked the part. I was sponsoring girls. I looked the part. But go ahead.
And so what was at the time, right? There's always self-talk, obviously there was some level of some severe depression, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. What was the talk going on in your head at the time?
I was so angry at God. I had gotten a resentment at God. And again, He's a good default. God's an easy default because then I don't have to look at my part of what I was doing at 10 years sober. I had secrets, inappropriate behaviors with men, inappropriate behaviors with money, and secrets from my sponsor. I was not sponsorable, and I blamed God for it all.
Gotcha.
It's God's fault. You're the reason that my character defects aren't gone. It's your fault. You're this big, powerful God. You have step 7. Why aren't you taking this stuff away? Why aren't you removing these character defects from me that's causing me to take these inappropriate actions?
And in your mind, were you looking at other people and thinking, he's taking it away from them, why not me?
Well, I didn't see that. I saw what God was doing for them. How come she's got mine, of course mine was about a guy. How come I'm not married at 10 years sober? How come I don't have the perfect husband and the perfect AA couple in Alcoholics Anonymous like they are? It's all God's fault. You give it to them, but you won't give that to me. Your fault. Okay. I'm taking inappropriate actions. It's your fault.
So the hopelessness, it seems to me, was really kind of centered around men and marriage and finances.
Not getting what I wanted.
Hopelessness right there. Okay, gotcha.
Yep, and not getting what I thought I wanted, what I thought I should have, and it's God's fault. And it's just when it's just the bottom line is it's a resentment.
Yeah.
And I thought because it was God, it didn't matter. I wasn't doing a nightly 10-step. I wasn't praying anymore. I wasn't telling my sponsor I'm mad at God. I was not praying. I had no relationship with God except anger and screaming and yelling at God. And when you don't have a God, where are you going to go?
And so just curious when you go to meetings and there's your subjects come up like the 10th step or the 11th step or whatever, and you were sure, were you kind of faking your way through that or?
You avoid topics like that. You don't really share on things like that. And back at that time, I wasn't going, you don't go to discussion meetings much there. It was speaker meetings. Yeah, it was a lot of speaker meetings. So, I really wasn't in a discussion meeting. And, when you sponsor women, you say all the right stuff because you train. I know what to say. I know what you need to do. I know what to say to you, but I wasn't doing it. I had a secret. And there's a line in the book that says we were enjoying a reputation we knew we didn't deserve. Oh my gosh, that was my sentence. That was my line. I knew it. And I was living a lie. All the stuff that we talk about, I was doing it and nobody knew. My sponsor didn't know. My family didn't know. Although I will have to say, if you ask my mom says there was a night that we were out to dinner, me and her and my daughter and Jim, and she saw something in my eyes. A mother knows all. And my mom saw something. If you ask her about that, she says she knows. She saw it, but nobody else did.
As I mentioned on the front end of this episode, be positively sure to come back next week to hear Tracie J, Tracie with an I-E, J, and the second part of her story, you're going to want to hear it. Believe me, you want to tune back in for that one. And now, oh, by the way, remember, we do not want you sharing your toothbrush or your comb or your STD, but we would love for you to pause your device and share this episode with another friend or family member. It may be just what they need today. Now, on to a little bit of listener feedback. The first one comes in, and Mike provided me this feedback. It is from Rusty. And Rusty writes in and he says, yo, what's with a Z, by the way? What's up, Lil G? Well, what's up, Rusty? He says, I just completed episode number 345 on YPAA and Ikipa, Waipa with Kara, Matt, and Casey. It was encouraging to hear their service in action. If only I had gotten my head dislodged from my posterior back when I was their ages. Please let them know that an old school like me really salutes their service work. And I did let them know, by the way, Rusty. He says, that's how AA will continue to survive and thrive. That's our responsibility pledge. Good point, Rusty. He says, you also question whether or not, when he had written in, or I think it was in response to his letter. It could have been in response to somebody else's, but he also said, you also question whether or not it was permissible to have more than one moniker. And just for those of you who didn't hear it, yes, I've been called Lil G, I think Don Juanito, Little Ginge, several different monikers. So Rusty heard me talking out loud and questioning whether that was okay. He says, you also question whether or not it was permissible to have more than one moniker. But of course, we alcoholics are never satisfied with just one of anything. So as long as it doesn't affect your program, i.e. Pride, and your sponsor doesn't object to it, by all means, keep piling them on. One is too many and 1,000 is never enough. He says, Mike, I'll explain this after I'm done with the letter. He says, Mike also announced the year anniversary of your de facto snail mail division of Sober Speak. Yes, from 1 year. That service work is truly a blessing for us that are still incarcerated. You are right. Thank you, Mike, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment. He says he also mentioned that Tanner M. from Roshan, Texas. Tanner used to be on the Robertson unit with me. Last June, we did his fifth step before he was moved. He's now taking college courses to earn a certification to be a counselor for substance abuse disorders. Small world, and I'm super proud of Tanner's progress, also known as the promises of AA. I'm proud of him too. He says, in episode 344, I enjoyed John R. and the wisdoms he imparted. I kept waiting for you to call him Bloody John since he was from London. Cockney speak, closely related to Spanglish. Guys look over at my cubicle when I bust out laughing at your, quote, wanderings during episodes. Those who inquire, I encourage them to listen and laugh along with us. Good move there, Mr. Rusty. He says episode number 343 with Greg L. gave a wonderful overview of spirituality in our program. Chapter 5 and how it works emphasizes spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. I cringe when contemplating how a bunch of alkies would manage, quote, spiritual perfection likened to the Pharisees, how they treated Jesus. We are perfectionist zealots. Good point, Rusty. He says that's why AA and our sponsors feed us extra helpings of humble pie. Lastly, Cliff, episode number 342 with Cliff G and Lori G was awesome. Who would have ever dreamed two recovering alkies being married and being blessed with a marriage relationship, and that so-called normal folks could dream of ever achieving in their dry marriages? I agree. He says, I finally learned not to 13th step my sisters. Those prior experiences were likened to the first and last captain employed by the RMS Titanic. So I'll wrap up here describing how I pecked this out while writing my rotisserie. Oh, and then in parentheses, it says 2 9-inch fans on both sides of me as I slowly spin dry into the perpetual moisture covering my skin during the 100+ degree Texas summer heat. He says, I've warned my family and friends that if I ever leave prison and they catch me freezing up while watching a chicken or sausages cooking on a rotisserie, to think nothing of it. It's just my special version of PTSD. Big smiley face. And then he says, hasta la vista, mi amigo Juanito, also known as Little G, also known as Little Gang. I don't know what that is, Little Gang, Genge. I should probably look that up. And then anyways, he signs off, Unity, Service, Recovery, one day at a time, Rusty R. in Abilene, Texas. So, first of all, Rusty, thank you for writing in. And he's actually writing in a physical snail mail letter to the gentleman, Mike, who monitors our Sober Speak P.O. box. And in case you do need that, and there's people that either want to use that or they have no choice to use that if they want to communicate with the podcast here. And it is the mailing address is Sober Speak, 1962 East Apache Boulevard, P.O. Box 7925, Tempe, Arizona, 85281. Once again, thank you for writing in, Rusty, and Mike, thank you for monitoring that P.O. box. Appreciate ya. Jason writes in, and Jason says, hi, John. Nice to hear from you. So I had actually reached out to Jason because we had been going through kind of some of the same things at the same time. He was struggling with a job and I was struggling with the same thing, and I was trying to navigate my life, and there were other things going on. But anyway, so I reached out to him and he says, hey, John, nice to hear from you. Things have been interesting in terms of my career. I can relate to that, Jason. After an almost 6-month job search, I had 3 offers come in at the same time in December. That was similar to what happened to me, Jason. I completely get it. So weird. But anyway, he says one of these jobs would have been set up in terms of pay, would have been a step up in terms of pay and career level, but would have required much more time and travel. I was tempted, but I turned it down. I ended up choosing a job with a broker who sells food and packaging to restaurants. It provides excellent work-life balance, a fairly enjoyable day-to-day work, and a decent but not exceptional pay. My wife was recently promoted and her work is much more demanding. It is good that I am able to provide a stable home life for the family, and my wife brings in a bigger paycheck, and I do the parenting stuff, make meals, etc. It feels good to support the family through daily actions. That's great, Jason. He says, we have a good balance. God does seem to provide what I need, even if it doesn't look the way I want it to. I don't know that I have found my calling in terms of work, but I'm grateful for the life that it provides. Good perspective, Jason. He says, how's your career? You shared you were having challenges, very similar to what you experiences. I hope our paths cross I hope your path has gotten easier. I am off to Las Vegas this weekend to see my favorite band, Fish, play in the Sphere. Oh man, that's like a tongue twister there. Fish in the Sphere. Fish in the Sphere. Anyway, he says, I love singing live music. I feel exceptionally present when I feel exceptionally present when I'm enjoying music. That's a great way to look at that. There is a very strong recovery community at the shows, and we actually have meetings at the set breaks in the concert. Very, very cool. When I get home, I'm headed to Cleveland the following week for a retreat led by Bill C. and Matthew M. I'm excited for that. Your show, John, helped turn me on to both Bill and Matthew. I have been enjoying your podcast as always. This week with Chris S. was great. Thanks for your service. Hope our paths cross in person one day soon. Best wishes, Jason F. God bless you, my friend. I do hope that our paths cross very soon as well. I would so much enjoy that. All right. Anybody who wants to write in, I'm at John, JOHN, at soberspeak.com. If you're not following us on La Instagram, it's at Soberspeak, all one word. If you want to follow us if you want to join the super secret Facebook group, all you got to do is go to Facebook and search up. You don't have to put the super in there. Just put Sober Speak Secret Group and ask for admission in there, and we'll get you there. And also, we have a Pinterest account. It's at Sober Speak, all one word as well, if you would like to follow us on there. We're just all over the place. Nonetheless, that is another episode in the books. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. I take this 1 week at a time. I hope to be back next week. If I'm not, hey, life will go on. And then what else do I like to say? Oh, yeah, may God bless you and keep you until then. Once again, love you guys. Bye-bye.